Have you ever stopped to think about how politics sneaks into every corner of your life? From the price of your groceries to the air you breathe, the political system you live under shapes it all. Here's a shocker. Did you know that the average American spends over $12,000 on healthcare each year, while in Sweden, it's only about $5,200? That's a huge difference, and it all boils down to politics. But it doesn't stop there. In some countries, the freedom to express yourself can be limited. For instance, in China, you might face government censorship on social media, while in Norway, you can tweet freely about almost anything. Curious about how education systems differ too? In Finland, every student gets a top-notch education, while in the US, the quality can vary wildly based on where you live. In this video, we're diving into 6 surprising ways that political systems impact your everyday life. You'll discover how different policies affect your wallet, your freedoms, your health, and more. Ready to see how politics touches everything around you? Let's get started. Chapter 1. Economic ripple effect, from policies to your pocket. Did you know that the political system you live under can directly affect how much you pay for groceries? It's true. In capitalist systems, market forces drive prices, so you might find yourself hunting for bargains more often. But in more socialist economies, government regulations can keep prices steady, albeit with fewer choices on the shelves. For example, in 2023, the average inflation rate in the United States, a largely capitalist country, was around 3.2%. In contrast, inflation in social democratic Sweden hovered around 2%. Why? Because Sweden's government often steps in to stabilize prices on essential goods. Now let's talk jobs. In capitalist systems, job creation is often left to the private sector. This means you might see a boom in opportunities during good times, but layoffs during economic downturns. On the other hand, in countries like China, where the state plays a significant role, jobs can be more stable but less diverse. For instance, state-owned enterprises in China employed over 58 million people as of 2022. Compare that to the US, where only 6% of workers are employed by the government. Economic policies don't just stop at jobs and prices. They touch everything, even the kinds of businesses that thrive. In free market economies, innovation is king. That's why you see so many startups in the US. However, in more controlled economies, like those in some Middle Eastern countries, traditional industries like oil dominate because of government preference. So, the next time you notice changes in your wallet, remember, it's not just the economy, it's the politics shaping it. Chapter 2. Freedom or framework. Navigating rights in various regimes. Freedom isn't just about what you can do, it's about what the government lets you do. In democratic societies, you have a wide array of rights, from voting to free speech. But did you know that only 39% of the world's population lives in a fully free democracy? That leaves the majority of people under governments where freedoms are limited. Take a look at freedom of the press. In countries like Norway, which ranked first in the 2023 World Press Freedom Index, journalists can report freely on almost anything. Compare that to China, which ranked 179th, where the government tightly controls media narratives. This difference impacts not just what you read, but also what you're allowed to say. In 2022, China had over 100 journalists behind bars for speaking out against the state. But it's not just about the media. In authoritarian regimes, even everyday activities can be restricted. For example, in North Korea, citizens need government permission to travel within their own country. Meanwhile, in most democratic countries, you can hop on a plane and go wherever you please. This difference shows just how much political systems can shape your freedom of movement. But here's a twist. Some countries find a middle ground. Singapore, often cited as an example of soft authoritarianism, restricts some freedoms, but offers a high standard of living and economic freedom. So is it freedom that you crave, or a framework that provides stability? It's all about what you value most. Before we move on, hit subscribe and let's dive back into more great content. Chapter 3. The healthcare maze. Who decides your well-being? Who pays for your doctor visits? That answer depends largely on your country's political system. In the United States, healthcare is mostly private, which means you might have to dig deep into your pockets for treatment. On average, Americans spent $12,914 per person on healthcare in 2022, the highest in the world. But in countries like the United Kingdom, where healthcare is publicly funded, people spent just $5,268 per person. That's less than half. But spending isn't the only thing that varies, so does access. In universal healthcare systems like Canada's, everyone is covered, but you might wait longer for treatments. In 2022, the average wait time for elective surgery in Canada was about 21.2 weeks. Compare that to the US, where you can often get treated quicker if you can afford it. Another interesting point, life expectancy. You might think that more spending equals longer lives, but that's not always the case. Japan, with a mix of public and private healthcare, spends far less than the US, yet boasts one of the highest life expectancies in the world at 84.5 years as of 2023. Lastly, let's talk innovation. In countries with more private healthcare, like Switzerland, there's often more funding for research and new treatments. That's why many cutting-edge drugs and technologies come from these places. But the trade-off? Higher costs for the patients. So, whether you're debating universal coverage or private insurance, remember, your well-being isn't just about the doctor you choose, but the political system you live under. Chapter 4. Education Evolution, How Politics Shapes Your Learning. Ever wonder why some countries emphasize STEM while others push the humanities? It's all about the political system. For example, Finland, often lauded for its education system, prioritizes equal access to high-quality education for all students. This approach stems from its social democratic values. By the way, Finland's students consistently rank near the top in global education assessments like PISA. But let's flip the script. In the US, a more market-driven approach to education means more choices, but also more inequality. Did you know that in 2023, US schools spent an average of $15,000 per student annually? Yet schools in wealthier areas can spend twice as much as those in poorer districts. The result? A significant gap in educational outcomes, with wealthier students generally outperforming their less affluent peers. In contrast, countries like South Korea have a highly centralized education system, where the government sets strict standards. This has led to South Korea having one of the highest literacy rates in the world, at 97.9% in 2023. However, this emphasis on academic achievement has also led to intense pressure on students, with South Korea having one of the highest rates of student stress. Let's not forget about innovation in education. In countries like Singapore, which blends meritocracy with strong government oversight, the education system is designed to identify and nurture talent early on. Singapore's students consistently rank at the top of global math and science tests. Yet critics argue that this intense focus on testing stifles creativity. So, when you think about education, remember, it's not just about the classroom, it's about the politics behind the curriculum. Your learning experience, opportunities, and even the subjects you study are all shaped by the political system. Chapter 5. Social safety nets or free markets. The welfare state debate. Social safety nets, are they a sign of a caring government or a crutch that stifles ambition? It depends on who you ask. In Scandinavian countries like Norway, the welfare state is robust, offering generous benefits like free healthcare, education, and unemployment insurance. In fact, Norway's spending on social protection was 25.6% of GDP in 2023. This has led to low poverty rates and high life satisfaction among citizens. But what about the flip side? In the United States, there's a stronger emphasis on free markets and individual responsibility. As a result, social welfare programs are less comprehensive. For example, in 2023, the US spent about 18.7% of its GDP on social programs. Critics argue that this approach encourages innovation and economic growth, but it also leads to higher levels of inequality and poverty compared to European countries. Then there's the middle ground. Germany offers a blend of social safety nets and market-driven policies. Known as a social market economy, Germany's system combines a strong welfare state with a competitive economy. In 2023, Germany's unemployment rate was just 3.3%. partly because the government provides extensive support for job training and placement. What's fascinating is how these systems impact personal behavior. In countries with strong welfare states, there's often a greater sense of social trust. People feel more secure knowing there's a safety net if things go wrong. However, in more market-driven systems, there's a greater emphasis on personal responsibility and entrepreneurship. This can lead to higher levels of innovation, but also greater anxiety about job security and healthcare. So when you debate the merits of social safety nets versus free markets, consider this. It's not just about economics. It's about how these systems shape our values, behaviors, and even our sense of security. Chapter 6. The Climate Conundrum. Environmental policies that touch your life. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's a political one. The policies your government enacts can directly affect the air you breathe, the water you drink, and even the price you pay for energy. In 2023, the European Union set an ambitious goal to reduce carbon emissions by 55% by 2030. This is a direct result of the EU's political commitment to combating climate change, and it's already leading to a shift towards renewable energy sources across Europe. But let's look at a different approach. In the United States, environmental policies vary greatly depending on the political party in power. For instance, during the Trump administration, many environmental regulations were rolled back, favoring economic growth over environmental protection. In contrast, the Biden administration rejoined the Paris Agreement and set goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 52% by 2030. What's interesting is how these policies impact everyday life. In countries with strict environmental regulations like Sweden, you might pay more for energy, but you'll also see more investment in green technologies. Sweden, which aims to be carbon neutral by 2045, already gets about 54% of its energy from renewables as of 2023. This focus on sustainability has led to cleaner air and water, but also higher energy prices. On the other hand, in countries with fewer environmental regulations, you might enjoy cheaper energy, but at the cost of higher pollution. For example, China, the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases, has seen rapid economic growth partly because of its reliance on coal. However, this has led to severe air quality issues, with Beijing often shrouded in smog. In 2023, China still relied on coal for about 56.8% of its energy needs. So the next time you think about climate change, remember, it's not just about the environment. It's about the political choices that determine how we live and what kind of world we leave behind.